Welcome back to Worth Coin, where ordinary pocket change can lead to extraordinary fortune. Today, we're uncovering 6 Kennedy half dollars that could be hiding in your drawers, in your jars, or even in that old coin collection passed down from Grandpa. Coins that may look ordinary at first glance, but could secretly be worth tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. These are ultra-rare Kennedy half-dollar coins that serious collectors would pay a fortune for. If you know what to look for. So get ready, because these aren't just any coins. These are the kind that spark bidding wars, light up auction rooms, and leave people in absolute shock. Now, before we reveal the first jaw-dropping coin, don't forget to subscribe to Worth Coin and turn on notifications so you never miss out on the next rare coin that could change your life. First up on our incredible list is the 1965 Kennedy half dollar. And folks, this one might just blow your mind. Now, at first glance, the 1965 Kennedy half dollar might seem like just another coin from the mid-60s. You might even pass right over it, thinking it's nothing special. But let me tell you, this coin holds a secret that if spotted can turn what looks like a 50-cent piece into a small fortune. Let's back up for a moment. The year was 1965. America was still mourning the loss of President John F. Kennedy. The nation was shifting away from silver coinage. Just a year earlier, in 1964, Kennedy half dollars were made with 90% silver. But starting in 1965, the U.S. Mint began phasing silver out of circulation. Coins, and the Kennedy half was among the first to change. The 1965 Kennedy half dollar was struck with a special 40% silver composition, making it different from most coins minted that year. But here's where things get interesting. Not all 1965 half dollars are created equal. Some were struck with proof dies, others on planchets meant for earlier years, and a few even have double die obverses, missing details, or striking errors that make them insanely valuable. Now, let's talk condition. This particular coin you're looking at is an extra fine condition, meaning it has sharp details, minimal wear, and a solid eye appeal. Most 1965 Kennedy halves in circulation are scratched up, dinged, or dull. But when you find one in extra fine condition, that's when collectors really start paying attention. Now, here's where it gets wild. A standard 1965 Kennedy half dollar in average circulated condition might bring you around $7 to $10, mostly for its silver content. But in extra fine condition, values can leap toward $75 to $150, depending on eye appeal and originality. But hold on, we're not stopping there. There's a specific 1965 Kennedy half dollar variety that's considered the holy grail of this issue. It's known as the 1965 Special Mint Set SMS, accented hair, or high relief variety, and it was struck with incredible precision. These coins were never meant for full circulation. Only a small number made it out, and those that did now sell for well over $5,000 in gem condition. Even crazier, one particular SMS 1965 Kennedy half dollar, graded SP68 by PCGs, sold at auction for a staggering $13,000, and that was without any major errors. But the real monsters, the true titans, are the error coins. We're talking about 1965 Kennedy halves that were mistakenly struck on a 90% silver planchet from 1964, a transition error that should never have happened. Only a handful of these coins exist, and if you ever find one, brace yourself, because the price can skyrocket to over $150,000, depending on grade. Imagine that, a coin from 1965, hiding in your drawer, potentially worth 6 figures. Collectors and dealers are hunting these down across the country, but you'd never know unless you know what to look for. Here's how to identify a potentially valuable 1965 Kennedy half dollar. Look for a bright silver appearance. Coins struck on 90% planchets tend to shine differently. Check for a high relief strike, especially on Kennedy's hair and the eagle on the reverse. Inspect the edges. A solid silver edge without the typical copper nickel layering could be a huge clue. Any unusual errors like off-center strikes, missing lettering, or doubling should be examined immediately by a grading service. Moving on, the next coin on our list might just be sitting quietly in a forgotten roll or old change jar. But don't be fooled, the 1967 Kennedy half-dollar in fine condition can be far more valuable than it looks, if you know exactly what to spot. Now, let's rewind a bit. It's 1967, the summer of love is in full swing. America is still healing from GF's tragic loss, and the mint is dealing with the coin shortage. As part of a temporary solution, the U.S. Mint decides to skip putting mint marks on any coins. Between 1965 and 1967, that's right, no PED or S on these coins. That decision alone has led to one of the most intriguing mysteries in modern U.S. coinage history. The 1967 Kennedy half-dollar was part of a transitional period, still made with 40% silver, but not meant to circulate as widely as earlier issues. Most people don't realize this, but a huge portion of these 1967 coins never made it into circulation at all. Instead, they were distributed in something called the Special Mint Set, or SMS. But even beyond that, there are whispers and real finds of something far more valuable. In fine condition, a typical 1967 Kennedy half-dollar will carry a modest value of around $5 to $10, mainly due to its silver content. That's what most people expect. But here's where the story takes a sharp turn. Some 1967 Kennedy halves have been discovered with dramatic strike errors, misaligned dies, multiple strikes, even coins struck on the wrong planchet, such as quarters or foreign coins. These are extremely rare, but when they show up, collectors go wild. Take, for example, the now famous 1967 double-struck Kennedy half-dollar, certified by NGC. It appeared on the market and sold for an astonishing $23,500, and that was in just extra fine condition. And then there's the crown jewel of 1967 errors, a Kennedy half-dollar struck on a silver planchet from 1964, leftover blank from the pre-transition era. Fewer than 3 are known to exist. These coins are not supposed to exist, yet somehow few escape the mint's careful eye. One such coin sold at auction for over $185,000. Think about that. From a 50-cent piece to nearly $200,000, that's the kind of thing collectors dream of. But it doesn't end there. Within the 1967 special mint sets, some coins were struck using proof-like dies. These ultra-sharp coins are known as SMS cameos or deep cameos. And if you find one in pristine condition, even better if it's untouched or still in original government packaging, values can soar up to $4,000 to $6,000. One specimen, graded SP68 Deep Cameo by PCGs, sold for a whopping $9,400. Now imagine, if that same SMS coin also had a striking error, you'd be holding a 5-figure treasure in your hand, and most people would have no idea. So, how can you spot a valuable 1967 Kennedy half-dollar? Next up is a coin that no one sees coming. In fact, 99% of people wouldn't even bother looking twice at it. But what if I told you that the 1984 Kennedy half-dollar, even in fine condition, could secretly be worth tens of thousands of dollars? Maybe even more, all because of a shocking mistake made at the US Mint? That's right. This is one of those coins that hides in plain sight, and only a tiny group of collectors know what to look for. Let's start with the basics. The 1984 Kennedy half-dollar was struck at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints. But it was not made with silver by this point. The silver content had been phased out completely. These were standard copper nickel-clad coins, produced in large numbers. In fact, over 26 million were minted that year. That's a big number, and it's exactly why this coin gets ignored. Most people assume it's worthless. But here's the twist. In 1984, a massive mint error slipped through the cracks, once so rare and mysterious that collectors today still debate how it happened. It involves a small number of Kennedy half-dollars that were struck on planchets that didn't belong to them at all. One of the wildest examples? A 1984 Kennedy half-dollar struck on a quarter planchet. That's right, the half-dollar design was squeezed onto a smaller quarter-sized blank. The result is a coin with incomplete lettering, clipped edges, and a dramatic off-center appearance. And it's completely real. One of these bizarre errors, authenticated by PCGs, sold for a stunning $22,000, but it gets better. Another 1984 Kennedy half-dollar was discovered struck on a foreign coin. Planchet a blank intended for a coin from another country entirely. These wrong planchet errors are incredibly rare, and when confirmed, their value explodes. That coin brought more than $28,000 at auction, all because someone knew what to look for. Now, even without a planchet error, double die obverses are known for the 1984 issue. Some coins show heavy doubling on the motto, "In God We Trust," or on the date itself. These are subtle, easy to miss unless you inspect closely, but collectors pay thousands when one surfaces. A confirmed 1984 Kennedy do, or double die obverse, graded AU, sold for $6,800 in a private auction. And that was for a circulated coin, not even uncirculated. Now, your 1984 coin is in fine condition, meaning some wear is present, but major details are still visible. Normally, a standard coin in this grade might fetch around $1 to $2. Face value with a little numismatic interest, but add a rare error or wrong planchet, a striking flaw, a die clash, and that number can jump to 5 figures or more. Here's how to spot a potentially valuable 1984 Kennedy half-dollar. First, check the weight. The standard is 11.34 grams. If it's significantly off, you might be holding a wrong planchet error. Look closely at Kennedy's profile and the lettering. Any signs of doubling or missing text could indicate a valuable mint mistake. Inspect the rims. Coins struck on smaller planchets will often have a partial or missing rim. Check for off-center strikes or weak reverse images. These may be signs of improper striking pressure or misalignment. Now, let's talk about a Kennedy half-dollar that most people wouldn't think twice about. The 1983 Kennedy half-dollar, in fine condition, without any hating, without any visible gape or surface damage. Sounds ordinary, right? But what if I told you this unassuming coin could actually be worth over $375,000? Yes, you heard that right, $375,000 under just the right circumstances? Let's take a closer look, because the 1983 issue is far from boring. It's a sleeping giant, and here's why. The year 1983 was smack in the middle of a period when the US Mint was pushing out millions of coins to keep up with public demand. Over 34 million Kennedy half-dollars were struck that year, all of them from the Philadelphia and Denver mints, and none with any silver content. That's what makes most people shrug and move on. But what many collectors don't realize is that 1983 is one of the most error-prone Kennedy half-dollar years in the entire series. Let's start with the obvious. In circulated fine condition, a regular 1983 Kennedy half-dollar might only be worth $1 or $2 if you're lucky. But it's the hidden errors and rare die varieties that make this coin an absolute game-changer. Take, for example, the now famous 1983 OFG Kennedy half-dollar. On the reverse of this coin, near the eagle's leg, you're supposed to see the designer's initials, FG, for Frank Gasparo. But on certain 1983 coins, the initials are completely missing. How could this happen? It turns out that an over-polished die, essentially a die that was worn down or smoothed too much by the mint, caused the initials to vanish. And that seemingly minor detail makes a massive difference in value. Collectors go absolutely wild for a 1983 no FG. Even in circulated condition, these coins can sell for $250 to $800. And in higher grades, mint state or proof-like, you're looking at $5,000 to $15,000 or more, depending on the strike. But we're just getting started. Another known anomaly from 1983 is the double die reverse DDR variety, a rare minting error where the lettering and parts of the eagle are doubled due to a misalignment in the die creation process. These are extremely rare and often missed because the doubling is subtle, but when caught and certified, one graded Ms. 66 DDR coin sold for over $32,000. Now, here's where it gets really wild. A 1983 Kennedy half-dollar was discovered struck on a planchet intended for a foreign coin, possibly a planchet intended for a US-minted Panamanian Balboa. The error was so shocking that PCGs certified it as authentic, and it fetched a jaw-dropping $376,000 at auction. That single coin turned a humble half-dollar into a once-in-a-lifetime payday. And the best part, these coins often look normal, just like the one you're holding. No hating, no surface gape, clean, plain. But if that 1983 half-dollar was struck on a foreign planchet, or has the no FG reverse, you could be staring at tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands in value. So, how can you identify a potentially valuable 1983 Kennedy half-dollar? Start by flipping it over. Look for the FG initials. If they're gone, and I mean completely missing, get that coin under a loop and consider submitting it to PCGs or NGC for grading. The 1980 Kennedy half-dollar, in what seems like just fine everyday condition, is actually one of the most deceptively valuable coins in modern US history. And yes, there are versions of this coin that have sold for well over $400,000. Sound unbelievable? Just wait. The year was 1980. America was gearing up for a new decade. The mint was running at full throttle, and over 60 million Kennedy half-dollars were produced that year, most at the Denver Mint, and a large batch at the Philadelphia Mint, marked with a P. These were regular copper nickel-clad coins. No silver, no proof sets. Just routine pocket change. Or so we thought. The truth is, 1980 was a year of unexpected chaos inside the mint, and it led to one of the most jaw-dropping mint errors ever caught in a Kennedy half-dollar. And what makes it even more fascinating is most of these errors look like normal circulated coins. Until you really look close. Let's break it down. A standard 1980 Kennedy half-dollar in fine condition typically sells for just face value 50 cents. Maybe a buck or two if it's got some collector appeal. But if you find the right type of error, that tiny coin could fund an entire retirement. Let's start with one of the most notorious. The 1980 Kennedy half-dollar struck on a Susan B. Anthony dollar planchet. That's right, a half-dollar design mistakenly struck on a planchet meant for a completely different coin. What does that mean? You get a Kennedy half that's smaller, with parts of the design missing or cut off, the rims don't match, and the weight is slightly off. It looks strange, but if you don't know what you're looking for, you might think it's just damaged. But it's not damage. It's a mint error so rare that one example, certified by PCGs, sold at auction for a mind-blowing $416,000. And it doesn't stop there. Another known 1980 half-dollar error includes double-struck coins, where the coin was hit twice by the dies in slightly different positions. These shadow images make the coin look ghost-like and terrifyingly valuable. A double-struck 1980 Kennedy, in circulated condition, fetched over $17,000 at auction. And then there's the off-center strike errors, where the image of Kennedy's profile is shifted so far to one side that parts of the coin are blank. These are highly sought after by error collectors. One with over 60% off-center and full date sold for $21,500, and it wasn't even in uncirculated condition. Next in our treasure hunt is a coin that many people have seen, held, and probably spent without a second thought. The 1985 Kennedy half-dollar. It's modern, it's familiar, and in fine condition. It might appear totally ordinary, but appearances can be deceiving because this coin, under just the right conditions, has been known to reach auction prices beyond $450,000. Yes, nearly $500,000, from a coin minted in the 80s. Now let me explain why this is not just another face value half-dollar. In 1985, the U.S. Mint produced Kennedy half-dollars at both the Philadelphia P and Denver D mints. No silver content, standard copper nickel clad. In total, over 44 million coins were produced, mostly for collector demand, since the half-dollar had already started to vanish from everyday circulation. And that's exactly what makes this coin so dangerous. It's hiding in plain sight. Most collectors write it off, but if you knew what to look for, you'd realize the 1985 Kennedy half-dollar is packed with secrets. Let's start with the basics. A normal 1985 half dollar in fine condition, meaning lightly circulated, visible. Detail: a bit of wear is typically worth around $1 to $2 to collectors. But then, there are the errors, and one error, in particular, turned this coin from spare change into national numismatic news. It's known simply as the 1985p off-metal error. What happened was that a Kennedy half dollar was accidentally struck on a planchet meant for a completely different coin, a 90% silver planchet from the earlier series. A leftover blank that should have never been in the minting machine made its way into circulation, and only a few were ever discovered. One confirmed specimen weighed in at 12.5 grams, clearly wrong, and had a completely different metallic tone. That coin was authenticated by PCGs, graded AU, and sold for a shocking $453,000 at a high-stakes auction, and that wasn't even the rarest version. Another 1985 Kennedy half dollar was discovered with dramatic die cracks running from Kennedy's jaw to the "In God We Trust" motto. The reverse had a clash die, showing impressions from the obverse and error so visually striking it left collectors speechless. That coin, though not fully uncirculated, sold privately for $38,000. But wait, it gets even better. In 1985, a small number of Kennedy half dollars were struck with rotated dies, meaning the reverse side is misaligned when you flip the coin over. Most people don't even know this is an error, but advanced collectors pay huge premiums for dramatic examples. One such rotated die 1985p Kennedy sold for $11,500, and it was in fine to extra fine condition.